at all if they approved it. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Call Grant Robertson.
Mr Chair, I thank for the call and for the member for her contribution. I want to make a general comment about the matters covered under SOP number 100 that cover Part 4, and then some specific questions about those changes. The general comment is to say that there are significant changes in this SOP as to how the transitional provisions will work. And the member who's just resumed her seat has given an explanation around one of those, around the SOP changes to 151A. But there are others as well around 149A and in particular around the new 151AA that are major changes, and it would have been good to have had a select committee consideration of this. I'm not doubting the word of the member or anything like that, but to understand the impact of this with an SOP that finds its way to us just a couple of days before we come to debate it is not satisfactory. We've said time and time again in this process that what everyone is after is certainty. What people want is the opportunity to be able to understand what the requirements will be, and frankly, in this particular part of the SOP, all we've got is uncertainty and questions that remain for us about whether or not, what the impact rather of these changes will be. Because the member who has just resumed her seat says this is not about making things easier for those who already have licences to prospect or who have had consents granted. This is, while that's what she says, what's on the paper in front of us looks like a regime that's been designed to make it as easy as possible for those companies who are there, and has some very flexible language inside it. And so by moving from existing activities to planned activities, on this side of the House what we want to know is that the scope of any planned activity is limited. And when I look at 151A, I'm not certain I get that, especially because we have references back within 151A to earlier sections, and we did, as Mine and Mackie said, we're hoping that the Minister would be able to get up today and explain to us how 151A works in with the earlier clauses around assessments. We've had some comment on that from the member who's resumed his seat, but I do find it difficult to accept that this could not have gone back to a select committee to clarify this, because I suspect in future years we're going to have to come back and do just that. But the clause that I do want to, I just want to speak about 149A before I come back to 151AA. 149A is around existing petroleum activities becoming discretionary, and I want to particularly note that what happens in 149A is the overriding of Section 15 of the bill, and that's where our concerns start, because Section 15 of the bill is a very important section within the bill, because it actually gives the powers to the authority around what restrictions there should be. And these are the kinds of things that people would like to see in any piece of legislation that comes through to this House, where we are actually trying to make sure that we have clear rules and clear guidelines for everybody involved. So I know we're not supposed to refer back to parts, Mr Chair, but it's relevant because subsection 5 of the new 149A overrides Section 15. And Section 15, which has already been passed in, is around the restrictions on work in the exclusive economic zone. It's around things like the construction, placement, alteration, extension, removal or demolition of structures, submarine pipelines, submarine cables, the removal of non-living natural material, the disturbance of the seabed or subsoil, the deposit of anything or organism in the seabed, the destruction, damage or disturbance of the seabed in a manner that is likely to have an adverse effect on marine species or their habitat. That's Section 15. Subsection 5 of this overrides that. Now, that's a very significant thing to be doing within a clause that's just arrived on an SOP, telling us that existing petroleum activities don't have to worry about any of that. Now, that'll be because there are already restrictions within the permits and the licences that people have, but I can't compare those at the moment. As a Member of Parliament expected to look at this bill, I can't compare back to what those existing licences are. All I know is that we're about to pass, if the government gets its way, a clause within a bill that tells me that none of those things matter anymore, that for those activities all of those things are out the door. And from our point of view, the destruction, damage or disturbance of the seabed in a manner that is likely to have an adverse effect on marine species and their habitat is, Mr Chair, is a serious matter. And so this is why we have a problem with these clauses being dropped on the House by way of an SOP, because we should be able to go back and look at what the impact of this is. The last matter I want to raise, Mr Chair, is around the new clause 151AA, because I think this is where, as my colleague Eugenie Sage has already expressed in this debate, this is an area where we've got a whole new area around planned activities, not just existing activities, and these are activities with licences granted under the Continental Shelf Act 1964. Now, the issue we have here is, firstly, we're not just talking about existing activities, we are talking about planned activities, but they may not even be activities, as Eugenie Sage has said, that have begun. These are licences that have been potentially held for some time, and yet we're expected to say, well, that's fine, they can just carry on. That's not an argument about certainty. These activities in many cases haven't even started yet, and we're saying these activities don't now need to be subject to the new legislation that we're putting in place today. Again, this is dropped on us at the last minute. It wasn't discussed in Select Committee. It hasn't had the scrutiny that people would expect. Well, Mr Goldsmith said we would never do that. I don't know if we had. Does it make it right, Mr Goldsmith? Does it make it the right thing to do, to drop something in the House in an area where everybody across the House wants to create the most robust law that we possibly can? And that's the problem we've got, having something dropped on us where we don't know whether we're actually going to be able to create the most robust law that we can. So we have a concern now that we're creating 2 or 3 different regimes for planned activities under different laws that will not be under the new processes that we've agreed today. That's inconsistent, potentially dangerous, and not what we would like to support. Unless the Minister is able, or a member of the government is able to stand and reassure us around 151AA, we don't believe that that's a clause that we could possibly support. And overall, we think that this is an example of why the government should have sent this particular SOP back to the Select Committee to enable proper scrutiny.
Members, we come to the vote on Part 4. First, we have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 100. The question is that the Minister's amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no.
No.
The ayes have it.
Noes have it. Party vote, please.
Party vote's called for. Ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 opposed.
Green Party.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Māori Party.
3 votes in favour.
Mana. Act New Zealand.
1 vote in favour.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Members, the ayes are 72, the noes are 48. The amendments are agreed to. The question now is that Part 4 is amended, stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Is it? Party vote's called for. Ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 opposed.
Green Party.
11 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Māori Party.
3 votes in favour.
Mana.
1 vote opposed.
Act New Zealand.
1 vote in favour.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Members, the ayes are 72, the noes are 48. Part 4 as amended will stand part. We now come to the schedule. The question is that the schedule stand part. Those in favour will say aye. To the contrary, no.
No.
The noes have it. The noes have it. Members, we now come to the clauses. The question is that clauses 1 and 2 stand part. Grant Robertson.
Mr Chair, we come to the title and commence.